Hi there, and welcome to another Warlock's Tower 8th edition Warhammer 40k battle report. So today we've got my Orks versus my good friend Glenn's Dark Eldar. Neither of us have taken anything outside of those traditional lists. I've taken a couple of Forge World options. So basically, the models I'm using are from a Snakebite army I'm converting and an army which is currently known as the Eldork army. I need to invent the clan name, but basically it's a group of greenskins who've got obsessed with the Eldar race, much like the Blood Axes of old were obsessed with the Imperium. So yeah, so you'll see some of the models. I've got Eldar jet bikes converted with Gretchen riding them to be Deathcopters. The tank on the truck chassis is a half-track from Forge World, and then there's a Gorkonaut made out of another tank, and then we've got Boar Riders as bikers. We've got a Squigoth, again from Forge World, not the Gargantuan Squigoth, unfortunately. Amazing rules for that guy. So yeah, hopefully it'll all become pretty obvious as we go through things. And yeah, I've got some Forest Goblins as Gretchen, and then I've got a couple of big mechs, a Knob with a war banner, and a war boss on a biker or boar. So yeah, getting into setup. So we're playing lengthways, we're playing Maelstrom, Cloak and Shadow. So we've got hidden objective cards. At the top, we've got on the Dark Eldar side, we have a Venom. Each of the Venoms has Cabalite Warriors with a blaster in. So you've got heaps of anti-infantry shots, and now with effectively everyone having split fire, the blasters are really good for taking out big targets. Then we've got inside the building is a Raider that has a succubus and some Witch Elves with various nasty hand-to-hand combat weapons in. Pretty choppy sort of unit, keen to avoid those guys. On top of the building is a Ravager, again for taking out those vehicles. Another Raider, this time with Cabalite Warriors with multiple blasters in. A Fighter with the missiles and Dark Lances. Another Ravager, and two more Venoms. So it's a pretty fast list. Heaps of shots coming out of those Venoms with the guys shooting out the open tops. So yeah, pretty dangerous list. It seems a lot more powerful in this edition than it was in the previous edition. And so the objectives are obviously up on the tower, down on the right, three through the middle, and then one over in my deployment zone. For my deployment, we have basically, he also has some of the winged guys, like Swoopy Hawks, but the Dark Eldar version, with Heat Lances coming down, so really good at taking out my Gorkonaut. So basically to stop them getting down in my backfield and force me to go backwards to deal with them, I've just put my Rots down. They were my first drops, so I could see where he was going. I've basically got a full battalion here, so there's 2 boys units, 4 grots, giving me my 6 troop choices, and then there's 3 each of fast attack, elite, and heavy. So yeah, it works out really well. So I'm pretty pleased with how this army looks at this stage. There's definitely some things that need tweaking, which I'll talk about. So I've started with a mech and the Wild Banner Knob inside the Gorkonaut. The 10 Tank Busters are inside the half-track with a mech. Now, I was completely accidentally cheating with this. I didn't realise taking the Scorcher, which is an amazing weapon on the half-track, reduces its transport capacity to 6, so I need to change my list up there. I also, this is a throwback thing, that didn't realise guys who had transported their bubble effects, so the force fields from the mechs and the +1 to hit from the banner, don't work while they're in transport, so that was a bit stupid. So the list needs changing for those things. but otherwise it's pretty good. There's a unit of boys, surprisingly Snakebite boys, in the Squigoth. So yeah, pretty good. And then there's two units of 5 bikers and the war boss in behind the Gorkonaut. So yeah, I find the Gorkonaut so potentially powerful with the ×3 attacks or the ×2 strength, and it's 6 attacks when it's on full wounds. So 18 wounds is great. So yeah, it's good. So turn 1, Glenn obviously with the amount of drops I've got finished first. I failed to seize the initiative. Everything kind of swept forward. In Cloak and Shadows you get an additional -1 to hit if you're more than 18 inches away. So this is probably the mission to go second on. So his shooting was relatively ineffective. First off, he piled everything into the Gorkonaut, and it survived with 11 wounds. So yeah, it was pretty good as a first off. Mainly it was the Ravagers that did the damage at this range. So yeah, as you can see, a big line of flying boats swooping forward with its cargo of poisoned death and blasters. But I was pretty pleased how the Gorkonaut weathered the storm. 5 up involved had come in, but yeah, it was good. This is my pool of 12 command points. Now, I'm not sure it would be useful taking this with an Eternal War mission, but with Maelstrom, I found it really handy. I could just chuck 2 in. Actually, every turn I put 2 counters in and dropped a card, which just changed the game completely. It's great. So yeah, so my setup, I've got the Grots at the back, I've got the big track with the Scorch Cannon, I've got the Squigoth with the boys in it. It actually wasn't just the lengthways, it was the sort of pointy arrow version. So the 25 inches up at the front and 12 inches up either side. So hence my sort of arrow formation. Then I've got a group of bikers in the crater at the front, the war boss on the war bike on the grey boar, and then the guys behind him. So yeah, and then behind that I've got death copters in the ruin with a group of boys on foot in front of that in the red and white. So this is the end of my turn 1 movement. As you can see, I've taken 7 wounds on the Gorkonaut, pushed forward the bikes, the Squigoth, and the tank busters in the half track. So I'm really keen to see how those guys go. To my mind, it's one of the problems that Orks potentially have, is how to pop open tanks to get out those squishy infantrymen inside, or infantry women, as with the witches. So yeah, I think they should go pretty well. Strength 8, AP 3, and re-rolling to hit on 5s is really good. The fact that they're assault weapons is great because you can move up and still shoot. So I made sure I'm within 18. I make sure I don't shoot my heavy weapons with the Gorkonaut. I don't think he can charge if I shoot those. But there's quite a few assault weapons which I bang into the Ravager in front of me and into the flyer. It feels wrong. I'm not sure we're playing it right, but the Scorcher is great against those targets which you need either -1 to hit, so flyers, because it hits automatically. So yeah, I'm loving that guy. So I pile a load of the shooting from the tank busters into the Ravager into the Raider in the center, pop out the guys from there, and then I also pop the Venom at the top. And those guys get to scamper back into the ruins. So I charge the Gorkonaut into the Ravager. The bikers go into the Cabalite Warriors, but not into the Archon. I don't double charge. I declared the charge with the Squigoth into the guys in the crater at the top. It was a 10-inch charge, but I thought, well, why not? The reason why not is because he overwatched with the blaster, hit me, and took 2 wounds off. which was somewhat disappointing. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame. And then yeah, pretty much wiped out both the Ravager. The 18 attacks from the Gorkonaut is just amazing. So yeah, popped him really fast with that. The bikers unfortunately left the blaster guy alive. I think one guy died to morale. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame. But yeah, good result. Turn 1, 3 vehicles, and pretty much 2 units down. So yeah, for the loss of I lost a unit of Gretchen to shooting from the top venom, but yeah, I don't really count that as much of a loss, to be honest. So I'm expecting. So the Scourges come down to threaten the Gorkonaut. He's really keen on getting rid of the big guy, and to be honest, I suspect he will this turn. He flies forward with his jet. The 360 line of sight on flyers now really works well. Makes a huge difference to their effectiveness. So yeah, so in his next shooting phase, he blasts off the Gorkonaut. Some pretty good rolling with the Ravagers, just does for that, which allows him then to pile all of his poison shooting into the bikers. I didn't make an awful lot of the saves, so that leaves me with just the Power Claw guy, represented by the banner, left. He pops very quickly from his morale check, which is a bit of a nightmare. They chip off a couple more wounds off the Squigoth. I think the flyer did quite a lot of that damage too. But then the next wave can come in. So the next group of boys, which is actually bigger, this time the knob represented by the weird boy on the boar, and the Death Copters come forward. The Death Copters, the Tank Busters, and blow up the Raider, which had the witches in. They scamper back into cover as well. And then the boys at the top, who'd come out of the Squigoth, the Squigoth itself, all pile their shooting into the witches. The frag cannon on the Squigoth hit twice with the 2 remaining witches, which then I had the flame cannon left to potentially take out the succubus stood behind the witches, hit twice, wounded twice, and he made both of his invul saves. So potentially that would have allowed me to pile my shooting into her at the back. As you can see, I managed to chip off a couple of wounds from the flyer. I think it's down to 1 remaining wound. The warlord on his bike, who scampered around the corner and had a bit of a hide, managed to do most of that. Actually, I shot the bikers into the witches as well. Obviously, I was going to fire into the Archeon, but I can't rather. But yeah, it seemed pretty unwise with those witches stood there. It was interesting actually because in the first turn, Glenn pulled out card 66, which now represents you pull another card, and if you achieve that with your warlord, which is the succubus for him, it counts. You get 3 free points, but only your warlord can achieve it. Well, he was stood right next to the objective. So to be honest, I'd almost given up on the game at this point. I think he was 4 or 5 cards after his first turn. And I was like, ooh, it looks pretty dodgy. So I was like, well, I might be able to wipe him out, but I'm used to a flyer only snap shooting at and templates doing nothing. So I was like, ooh, it could be a bit tricky. But at this stage, I'm like, no, it's pretty good. I think he's got 2 venoms with troops in towards the bottom of the screen, and then he's just got the venom with no troops in at the top. Oh, with troops in at the top, the 2 guys in the crater, and then the 3 witches effectively. I'm like, I've still got a ton of troops left. There's still the tank busters in the half track. The boys are still full strength at the bottom, and there's 3 units of Gretchen for all the good they are. At this point, I pull out a card which means I need to get out of my deployment zone. So I had to confuse my opponent by measuring out my weird deployment zone. So yeah, it was pretty funny. So my Gretchen and my Runt Herd all sprint forward and just about can't make it out. I think I was 1 inches in with my Runt Herd, but yeah, it was one of those funny moments with the secret mission cards. So yeah, there's also the Ravager at the top I've got to take out in the Scourges, but it's turn 2 and there's just a load of fragile troops in front of me. But yeah, at this point, Glenn's definitely up on the cards, but the game could definitely swing either way. So yeah, as I say, all my Gretchen and my Runt Herd unfortunately did a poor advance move. It also made a huge difference when, with the advancing in the movement phase, it was interesting because you roll straight away, so you know, for example, I ran those boys towards the marker. Now, of old, I would have probably put the Deathcopters next to the marker and not fired their rockets, or not been able to fire their rockets as accurately because of the 18 inches. Because I wouldn't know if I'd roll the 3 in the shooting phase to run the boys up to the marker, but I roll it in the movement phase. So it was those little things that suddenly like, oh, 8th is a different game. Obviously very similar, but yeah, it was interesting, and yeah, particularly around advancing, I found that was really different. So yeah, so I multi-charge the Archon and the Blaster guy, thinking, well, I'll put 3 attacks into the Blaster guy and chop his head off with 1 boy, and then the rest can all pile into the Archon. The Archon's got the 1-up or 2-up invuln save, but if he fails it, it's gone. And then yeah, so I'm like, well, the chopper guys can go first, and then the big chopper from the guy at the back can hopefully, with its minus on his armor save, pop through. So yeah, the mech healed the big mech rather healed the Squiggoth a bit. I tried another long charge into the witches, thinking the mortal wounds on the charge might do the job, but unfortunately he failed again. It was a 10 again. It was a long charge, but yeah, unfortunately I failed. The boys charged into, they multi-charged as well, the Venom and the guys in the crater. There's only 2 guys in the crater left. So the combat against the guys in the middle went not as planned at all. I fluffed my attacks against the Blaster guy. I don't think I even wounded. Against the Archon, I think he failed his 3rd chopper attack save. He popped the 1. And then the big chopper went in and did 2 more wounds. Glenn put down the 3 wound marker, and then I flicked through the rules and went, big choppers do 2D. So popped in without him fighting, so that was great. The Blaster guy obviously gets to attack, but I'm not too concerned about that. So that was good. The combat at the top, which I think would kill the 2 Dark Eldar very easily, and even with a Power Claw in there, smash up the Raider, went very badly. I fluffed my attacks big time and left those alive, so I'm expecting a counter charge from the witches with their movement 8, pretty good, and re-rolling charges. And then I'm hoping to do a counter charge with the Squiggoth, and with its Stampede rule, I've definitely saved some counters, some command points to re-roll a 1 if he gets to do D3 mortal wounds if he charges. Unless you roll a 1, so I've kept some by for that. So yep, so consolidate through. Scourges hop forward and start shooting at the Squiggoth. The Ravager does the same. The boys at the bottom take some shooting from the Venoms and the guys in the Venoms. And the Squiggoth is put down to 1 wound pretty quickly. The Scourges come in. It's pretty limited on its attacks at this stage, but I think it's still 3 attacks at strength 5. I elect to interrupt his attack phase and completely fluff my attacks. And yeah, the Scourges pop it in combat. Blah. The witches charge in with the succubus, and were thoroughly underwhelming. I think they killed a couple of boys. I passed my morale test. The guys come out of the venom at the back. We had 2 times we had conversations about whether guys can exit transports when they're in combat. We couldn't find a rule either way, so it says you can exit transport, so why not? I killed 1 witch, took a few more casualties. Then comedy of comedies, I just get out of my deployment zone with my Gretchen and Runt Herd, thus scoring a point, and I pull get 3 units into your deployment zone and objective 5. So objective 5 is right next to the flyer. So then I've got to pile everyone back into my deployment zone, but it got me a lot of points. So very quickly I was suddenly racking up the Maelstrom objectives, and Glenn pulled out some cards, and because he had 4 command points, he couldn't swap them out. So suddenly the 12 command points I started with suddenly looked really important. So the Gretchen move up and they shoot and kill one of the Cabalite warriors, and then they're going to charge in and just try and sneak a wound off of the Reaver. The 2 big mechs move up to threaten the witches and the succubus, predominantly the succubus, her being the warlord, and the warboss comes through to kill, or to look at killing, the Scourge, and the Deathcopter guy, the other one got shot off by the blaster guy, looks at the blaster guy. So yeah, still got my tank busters in the tank to the track to potentially take out his Ravagers. So yeah, it's looking good to potentially wipe him out at this stage. Unfortunately, I declare the charge with the Warboss. He gets hit on the Overwatch by the Scourge, takes off 5 wounds. I then charge with the Deathcopter into the blaster guy. He hits with the blaster guy, kills the Deathcopter. I think he hit in Overwatch with key units, blasters and such 4 or 5 times in the game, and each time did significant amounts of damage. It was like, oh my god. So yeah, that was a bit of a problem. Finally managed to chip off the wounds for the Venom, allowing me to focus my attacks into the witches, finish the witches and the succubus with the big mechs. They've got kill source, so that's pretty handy. The big mech fought himself out of combat, and so he moved round to threaten the other unit of Cabalite warriors. Meanwhile, the boys at the bottom that got killed, about 3 or 4 men, they charged into the Venom, fluffed their attacks even with a power claw, and then and got killed. Venoms actually fight reasonably well for a vehicle, but the flame tank and the tank busters have come down to have a little look at these guys, and the big threat obviously is the Gretchen, not that they're in range as well. So the boys had come through and finished off the next unit of blaster armed Cabalite warriors down next to 3. So suddenly I had a big turn where I got 3 out of 3 objective cards. I also charged in with the kill sword guy. He made a mess. The half track guy killed the unit, and the tank busters did their job and busted the Venom. And I was like, well, if the game ends now, it's all over, because I thought Glenn had more cards than me. We counted up before we rolled the dice, and we had 9 cards each. But the game continued, and he has left 2 Cabalite warriors fighting a mech with a kill saw, and about to be charged by 2 boys and another kill saw mech. and then he has a blaster guy hidden in those ruins with 10 tank busters and a scorcher gun looking at him, and 2 bikers as well. So yeah, Glenn held out his hand, we shook hands. 3 Cavalite warriors versus quite a lot of the Orc army. Only goes one way, so it was a really good game. I was really pleased with my list. As I say, I made 2 rules mistakes. One, that I should have only had 6 guys in the half track, in the big track, and the next inval save shouldn't have gone on the custom guide, onto the Gorkonaut while I was inside it. That said, I looked at my list afterwards, and I'd have been way better off, and what I would have done is put a big mech on a bike, and then I'd have only needed 1 big mech. He'd have covered all my tanks with his bubble custom force field, which would have then freed me up to take a truck to put some more tank busters in, so I could have split them into a 6 and a 5, and so it wouldn't have made a huge difference if I'd realised before. So yeah, it was a really good game, really fun game. Could have definitely swung the other way. I think the Gorkonaut was always going to go down to turn 2, and so just threw him forward and smashed through. Just took such a weight of shooting. That was the key to it, that basically my army was pretty much unscathed at the start of my turn 2, and I went second because the Gorkonaut had just taken such a lot of shooting. The tank busters were great in this game. Obviously, with Glenn having a lot of vehicles and relatively light vehicles zooming around the place, that made a big difference. The big track, even though the transport capacity drops, I think I would definitely be taking it with the Scorcher Cannon. It was absolutely amazing. It's 4d3, -1 AP, only 1 damage, but hits automatically. So that's an average of 8 strength 6 hits at -1 per turn, which is just great when you're used to an army which hits on 5. So really, really useful. Can take out light vehicles at strength 6. Can certainly kill anything toughness 3. You're wounding on 2s, hitting automatically. So just brilliant. So I think that's a must keep in the army. The tank busters as well. The army fights really well, and I mean, everyone on forums and etc. that I've seen is like Green Tide, get big units of orcs over the board and smash people up that way. But this army gives it a really different flavour. It's fast. I mean, Gretchen's and the boys on foot aside, it's really, really fun to use. Seems to have a lot of orky flavour, lots of silliness, but is also very powerful. The Squiggoth, although he managed to fail both his charges, I think he's worth the points as well. So yeah, I have used the model as a truck in the past, but yeah, I think he'll be staying as a Squiggoth, and I'll just try and work the points to get a truck and then split down the tank busters to 2 5s or something like that. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the battle reports. Any questions, comments, leave them below, and subscribe for more 40k and 9th Age battle reports. Thanks. Bye.